beard. I haven't been able to get a haircut in like 8 weeks. So just growing it all out, like my hair is literally, I could probably, like it's really, really long if I let it all out, but
Nice. That's how we do. It's an excuse to like rock it like that too, right? 'Cause otherwise, people would just be like, "You're just unkept." But you're like, no, it's COVID. I'm good. I'm good.
it's COVID. It's lockdown. You can't do anything.
No. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's been almost a year since we did this. I know last time we couldn't,
Yes.
or you couldn't save it, so probably not up in the 200 plus archives that you got stored away.
No, I was mining for it, man. I saw like little snippets that we captured, but yeah, for those who didn't catch the first one, we were just having a great time, and then I think Instagram was in one of their changes when they were switching their format, and in the process of it, I completely lost like our whole conversation. So that was tough,
That's why
yeah,
we're back again. We're back at it again, so we'll get a good one out here.
nice. Yes, exactly. For those who don't know you, can you just say your name and your business, and we'll just go where the conversation leads us.
Yeah, so my name's Shea Pierre. My business is Pierre's League Performance. I work with athletes from all sectors of sports, and I've been fortunate enough to be a head strength coach at university and at the pro level. And obviously with COVID, we haven't been able to do a lot of that stuff, but I've been fortunate enough to also have an online business and company where we have online programs for athletes and weekend warriors and anybody like. And we also sell speed products. So it's
Yes,
kind of all encompassing for, performance athletes.
absolutely. I have been in the sport conditioning game for a long time and seen how, like yourself, you've seen how it's evolved. And I have to say, right out the gate, just watching over the last year and a half, like you have such a refined business and such a polished product, and it's good, like in terms of the products, the video, the media, and just the technical training side of it too, man. Like you really have a complete package going on there.
No, I appreciate that. So when we first started the business, like yourself, I would go over to a lot of seminars. I buy a ton of products, and I always say, I can do this better. I can make it even greater. So that's what we set out to do with all like the knowledge and background that I had, and all the experiences that I had. I want to be able to put out something out there that could work with athletes, coaches, parents at a very high level. So that
Yes.
when you press play, it's like I'm physically there teaching you, like you were with me in person. And so it really, it's really come a long way. We got a full-time staff when it comes to videographer, graphics, all that stuff. We're doing videos daily. So we're keeping up to date with
Yeah.
what's relevant out there. And so it kind of gives us that edge. And, we were fortunate enough to be an online, presence before COVID. So
Or
it had
yeah.
allowed us to really stamp our name out there. And it's allowed us, people to kind of see what we're doing at a very high level.
Yeah. I want to get to this guy's question about India because I've got some questions about India for Pilates and stuff too, right? That's a really growing market. So we'll circle back to that in a second. But people
All right, take
see
care.
what you're doing and it looks sexy at this point.
hmm
Could we just talk real talk for a second about how hard it is to get to this place and like some of your challenges that you've seen along the way?
Well, when it comes to like some of the more physical, skill, explosive movements that we kind of show on our Instagram page at times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. Well, first of all, we show a lot of that stuff obviously for marketing. We want people to catch their eye and show them some of the cool things that we're doing. Then when they go in our program, they take a step back and say, "Oh, here's the progressions to get there."
Yes.
But
Yes.
but obviously, it takes a very high skill, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifices, to get to that point. When it comes to a lot of movements that we do, it's not just like, you can just up and do it. But we
Yeah.
do, want to show people that you can get to this level, that, you can do this. And we show that, it is possible.
That's the gold star, but this is where you need to go. Like I see like a lot of the foot movements, just the minutia of these movements that set up the big, fast, explosive, like pinpoint accurate moves, right? So those are the things that we need to really appreciate in movement patterns, right? So I love the fact that you take time with that.
Yeah, no, like, we really focus in on the very fine details when it comes to movement. And we've actually taken a 360 approach this last year. I've dived in and learned a lot more about movement patterns, movement behavior, movement awareness. Really working with a company out there called Goda. They've really kind of revolutionize a lot of things that have already been out there, but made it a lot simpler for people to understand. And
Yes.
so we've taken a step back on a lot of the, strength approaches that we have done because, when we hate to say it, but some of the things that we have done in the past just weren't movement specific in a way that we're going to translate towards the sport. So you see a lot of
Yes.
stuff like heavy strength training with
Yes.
barbells, kettlebells, dumbbells. Yeah, that's great.
Your max bench press.
Max bench press, but is that going to have a great correlation and transition towards the sport? And really, you can get strong, but you're probably getting strong on dysfunction. You can't put strength on dysfunction. You got to be able to move correctly, which is forward locomotive patterns in order to maximize your return when you get out there. So we've started to really fine tune on a lot of that stuff, and everything starts with the foot, like you said. If that foot is not behaving properly when it hits the ground on contact, and you're putting max neural drive into the ground, you're going to have a lot of issues going up the kinetic chain. And a lot of that starts with the training that you do, and the recoveries that you're doing, which is like, we can get to it in a few minutes, but sitting postures throughout the day, that will actually maximize your training more than anything. And then the shoes that you wear, everything starts kind of in those three sectors, and then it will kind of work its way up from the foot all the way up the chain. So we've taken a really deep dive into that, and you can get really, break it down even more. But, those things are, the things that I really believe that can help an athlete. And we've seen huge changes in speed without actually having to lift heavy weights.
Right. And if I could just translate that for my Pilates population here, if you look behind me, my reformers set up, and Joe Supplies talked about the footwork. And in the basic intermediate mat reformer work, the first thing you do is your footwork, toes, arches, heels. And the more deeper you dive into your teaching as an instructor, the more you understand that your feet are going to tell you the story about the person for that day. Mm-hmm. Right. And we talk a lot about like training the body in front of you. And I'm sure it's the same for your athletes too. You could have a guy who's just performing like a rock star one day, and the next day he comes in, lack of sleep, injury, had a long car drive or something. He doesn't perform at the same level. So you could read by their feet what the performance is going to be like. Do we need to do a longer dynamic warm up? Do we need to extend your movement prep before we get into the exercises? So it's funny how in Pilates it's the exact same thing. Your movement prep, your initial exercises are telling the story of where you're going to go for your workout, and that all starts with your feet.
Everything starts with the foot. And the first thing that we do when someone walks in the door, as I'm watching the way that they walk, the way that their gait moves, and it's going to dictate from their foot how each step is going to play out. So when we start to do either a static or dynamic assessment, first thing we look at is the feet, because the feet, like you say, tell the story. Am I getting collapse in the inside of the arch? Are we getting pronation? Are we too far on the outside of our foot? And we talk about over and go to, is that inside ankle bone dropping low? Because if that foot does collapse, it's going to send stress up to the knee. It's going to send stress up to the hip, the back, the shoulders. Everything is going to be disaligned. And now when you put force into the ground, now we're more prone to injury. So the first thing we need to address at any point is the foot complex, because it is the initial driver that hits the ground.
Yes.
So, and we know that the foot, really, that's, if it's not done right, all that weight goes into that foot. You're going to get plantar fasciitis. You're going to get ankle sprains. You're going to get knee injuries. You're going to get Achilles shreds. There's so much things that can happen if it's not done properly. So that's the first thing that we take care of, is how the foot is working, and then we'll address everything. Because you might get free upgrades up the chain. Like if you have a hip dysfunction, you have a low back dysfunction, a shoulder injury, you might correct it by just fixing the foot. You might correct it by just getting them into the proper shoes. You might correct those things right away, and which we have done a lot of that. And when we look back to, children, they're getting what we call decoded at a very early age with the shoes that they wear, with the type of sitting posture that they're in. Like my son, I won't put crappy Nike Jordans Air shoes on his foot, because I know that he needs those sensory output, and he needs a flat cushion shoe when he's outside. He's barefoot, and when he's indoors, he sits all the time, right? So we're correcting movement postures and dysfunction right there.
Right there, exactly. In golf, they call it bleeding energy, right? Like when there's some point in that kinetic chain where it breaks down, right? So, so that's good stuff. Really good stuff.
Yeah, the foot has to hit on contact, it has to be stiff, it has to be rigid. There cannot be any collapse. Now the foot can have a little give, but it has to come back to neutral. It cannot cave in. If it does, then yes, you leak energy, you leak power, you leak performance, and now you're more prone to injury. You're not in a safe, secure position in order to be at your best.
Yeah, I think you need to be a little bit more excited about feet, man. Like you're just.
I know. It's something that we see that's just like every athlete has some type of foot issue. And it goes back to the things that we spoke about at the beginning, because a lot of them can't get full dorsiflexion. If you can't get good dorsiflexion, you're not going to be able to maximize your power. And one easy way, and I'm actually sitting right now, I usually don't sit on chairs anymore. So I sit on the ground all day, because that is the way that you're going to be able to stay tuned at all times. So people want to go do mobility sessions, they want to do flexibility sessions, but really, if you just sit all day, you're maximizing your performance at all times. So literally, you want to get full dorsiflexion, sit back and seize it with toes tucked. Boom, just sit back like this.
Yes.
Sit back like that, plantar flexion, sit back on your heels, right? I can go back here, single leg. I sit like that all day. I get full dorsiflexion. I can go into a full deep squat, no problem.
Yes.
And that's what's lacking in our sedentary lifestyle, is that we sit all day. And so we don't
jump in with there?
To that. Yep.
Because that is exactly it. And that is that's my little life hack for doing online training. So when I'm coaching people virtually, I'm sitting on the floor the whole time. Like I'm doing that. I'm just, even like those positions and rocking back and forth and just, those sort of things. Like, for those of us who are trainers out there who are spending a lot of time on a Zoom, you're sitting in a chair, like sneak those mobility movements in, like for your own performance. Like those are game changers.
I don't have to do any type of hip mobility, ankle mobility, because I'm sitting all day. I'm getting access to those areas. If you're sitting in a chair all day, you lose access to internal rotation of the hip, which is crucial in your gait cycle, which is crucial to get that little extra whip out of your speed, because everybody's doing external rotational exercises. So you're getting stuck in that hip. But if you can get down deep into a deep squat, you're going to start opening up that hip capsule, opening up those areas of success. And now you're going to feel limber and supple at all times, where I can go outside and sprint right now because I'm ready to do it. Like if you're an indigenous person in the wild, you don't have time to go stretch. You got to go, right? So you go to Japan, China, those places, they're sitting squats all day long, right? I work with an athlete. He's from Korea, and I do a movement assessment. He can sit down in a deep squat. Most of my athletes that aren't from different areas, they come in here, they can barely do a squat. They're like feet externally rotate. They sit down, they're all rounded out because they sit on a couch all day. They sit in a chair all day. They go, first thing you do when you wake up, you sit on your bed. Then you go to the washroom. Then you go sit in a chair. Then you go sit in the car. Then you go sit at the desk. It's sitting all day long, and then you wonder why your back hurts. You wonder why your hips hurt. You wonder why your ankle hurts. Well, because you sit all day. You wear shitty shoes. You don't move right. And then you go triple down on the bad weight training, and then you wonder why you're hurt all the time.
Right. How much time do you focus on the spine, thoracic extension, rotation, stuff like that? Like, I mean, obviously the feet are the foundation, but can you talk to spinal flexion, mobility, and how you speak to that with your athletes?
Yeah. So obviously a lot of the movements that we do, just in everyday population is more of, I call it 2D movement. So it's all brace the spine, pull the belly button in, pull the hips underneath us, and keep everything locked and rigid, right? We're just up and down, 2D movement like Tin Man way. But that's not how the body was designed to move. We're three-dimensional. We pivot, we rotate, we move, right? Like in sports, you do kind of brace when you have to hit contact, but nobody braces tight like they're in a plank. It's rotation. I go up for a pass, I hit something. Like I'm in these side bends, side flexion. I'm in these rotations. So with a lot of our athletes, we don't just work planks. And if we do, we're coming up and down so we can get rotation in our pelvis.
Dynamic, static, dialogue.
We're going more to those rotational movements because we're a rotational creature. Forward locomotion is rotational movements. We're a pivot point energy system. The way that we move and groove through life isn't straight line. Pull the pelvis underneath us. Keep the core tight. That's not how it works. So a lot of the movements we do are all rotational based. we pivot off the power side of our foot, we rotate to create power. And if people say, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Well, think about a UFC fighter. How does he create max force when he punches? He rotates and turns over. He pivots off the foot, and all that energy is then correlated from the hips through the shoulders. Think about when you're throwing a football pass. It's rotation. You need rotation through that sling system to throw, baseball throw. It's all rotational power. So when you run, why do you think people run and it's rotation? If I told you to lock your spine up and run, you wouldn't be able to run as fast. You wouldn't be able to use your hips and your body correctly. So a lot of stuff we do in the gym is tight, get rid of it, and start to add in more rotational base. And you actually notice my hips are getting looser, my spine's getting looser, right? We do side bends. Not a lot of people do side bend movement, right? It's all tight. Grab the kettlebell, walk tight, tight, tight. Well, in life, I move and I side bend. I grab down. I don't have to stay tight all the time and rigid.
Exactly. And, you know, and that's high level stuff. But if you are going to the grocery store and then you reach into your car, take your groceries out with one hand, that's rotational power. Like when your kid's running by and you pick them up, that's rotational power. Like it just translates to everyday life, whether it's big, dynamic, high level movements or it's just our everyday functional movement patterns. It's all the same thing.
No, it's we were made to rotate, but a lot of the stuff that we're doing nowadays is all anti-rotation, right? And so then people wonder why, you know, they're getting hurt because they don't have access to any more range of motion, right? They're tightening their whole body up on everything that they do, and then they wonder why they're hurt, right? So it's just what it is.
One of the questions that just came through: what is the best resource or certification to learn about rotation through training besides your stuff?
So this, you know, when I first started, you know, obviously in the strength world, all the things that I was ever kind of spoon-fed and learned was, you know, anti-rotation, brace the core, which is amazing when you're lifting heavy weights. And that's kind of where it came from, is that when you lift a heavy weight, 500 pounds off the ground, you don't want to flex to the side. You don't want to rotate because you're trying to pick up something super heavy. But when you're in life, you're not picking up stuff off the ground that's super, super heavy. So we lose access to that rotation. So when we start to open up our eyes a little bit, you know, the GOTA, that's a great place to start. GLS trainings, that's where I've learned a lot of the more stuff like that. Philip Beach, that's called Muscles and Meridians. Okay. He's great. He talks a lot about the postures and stuff like that, and sitting postures and how that can help. And if I come up with any more, I'll kind of throw it out there.
Yeah, throw it out there. You can put it in the comment section afterwards. There's a comment here about CrossFit and the lack of rotation and frontal work. Now, before you even answer that, I have a guy who owns a couple of CrossFit gyms in New York City and has a really, really balanced, like, he basically would have said what you just said a minute ago, perspective to it. So I don't want to just throw every CrossFit gym and every person under the sun with it. But like, just generally speaking, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so CrossFit, you know what? It's great for a general person that wants to go get fit and stuff like that. But you notice a couple of things in CrossFit that I've noticed over the years, that a lot of CrossFit athletes or people that do it over time will start to get broken down. And because they get broken down because the movement patterns and sequences are all, they push you into the front chain, meaning, and I'll kind of get this up here, okay? I'll push you in the back chain because we want to be in our back chain, meaning that we want our hips back behind us. But in CrossFit, a lot of the stuff are cleans, hang cleans. And what a hang clean does is it pulls you forward and it pulls your hips forward.
Into extension.
Yes, you pull it too much into extension, we get externally rotated and we kind of pull our pelvis underneath us. And it's almost like we're doing a high jump, we're going backwards. Well, in life, we're moving forward, so we're pushing all of our weight into the front chain. We're sitting into the front chain all day. So all we're doing is we're feeding bad behavior into our system. And then we wonder why we get groin injuries, hamstring injuries, and then we're moving duck-footed. If you ever watched a CrossFitter or anybody in a CrossFit gym, they walk with their feet out like this. We want to have our toes straight. If you want to get more rotational, internal rotation of the hip as we move through space, but they get locked into external rotation because the movements that they do, they learn and ingrain the movement patterns into their system. So if I'm going to move and pull into the front chain, get externally rotated, I become what I train, the movement patterns that I put into my body. So then I start to walk, and if you watch people walk, feet are turned out, right? They're pushed into their front chain. If you check them from the side, their hips are pulled forward, their head is pulled forward, and they're all out of alignment, right? There's not that joint approach. So that's the one thing that CrossFit, it may not be great overall for long-term success unless they're supplementing the movement patterns differently, right? Like I said, like everything that I do is I don't do a lunge and just go straight down. I rotate towards the front knee side. I get my head into that column. I turn my shoulders, and then I take a step where I, whatever it is, but I get my body into the column. If you watch and really, because I analyze a lot of sprinting, because that's the stuff that we really go on. When somebody sprints, when they want to put max force into the ground, they put their head inside that column. We have two columns, one on the right side, one on the left side. You put your head in the column, your shoulders rotate, and you line up everything to put force into the ground. Most of the time that I notice people when they walk or run, they can't get their head into the column. They're too stiff in the spine. So
yes. So would you say then that the days of isometric single joint, single plane moves are over, and everything should be multi-joint, multi-planar?
So we do isometrics. We just try to do isometrics in positions that are more advantageous to sports. Like when I'm in sport and we go back to the foot up the chain, I want to land what we call inside in a bow. So I want to land with my knees out. And everybody talks about knees out when we squat and everything, because we know if the knees go in, right, you're more prone to injury. Because if I put force into the ground like this and I want to make a change of direction, I'm going to blow out my knee. So like we might hold squats against the wall where I push my bum back, I'm in my back chain, my knees go out, I'm on my balls of my feet, emphasizing the weight on the power side of my foot. And we might just hold these positions because we're trying to ingrain proper movement patterns into our subconscious, into our software of our system. And that's what we want. So we'll hold isometrics, we'll hold positioning movements for long periods of time. So we don't even lift heavy weights. We might, because that's what I tell athletes now. Yeah, you need to be explosive, but you also need to be endurance durable. So I can make you super explosive by just sprinting. Like, you want to get faster at running? Run with sleds, run a hill, right? Push a sled, push something that's going to put you in that same orientation or projection angle, like in sports. I'm not going to go, like, you can do squats and you see some changes to run faster. There've been articles and stuff like that that say there's not too much of a correlation because one's a vertical shin angle, one's in a horizontal shin angle. But if you want to get faster, you need to do things that are going to be in that same ideal plane of motion. So I don't even know where I go with all this stuff.
No, that's good. No,
but anyway,
well, actually, I'll just jump in there because, like, as Phil's saying there, bodybuilding versus athletics, there's a place for all types of training. So yes, I mean, depends what you're training for.
That's exactly what you're training for.
And
that's big muscles, then go bodybuild.
Yeah,
but for us, we'll do pull-ups. We'll get big biceps, and I don't even need big biceps to run fast, jump high, whatever that is.
Right, exactly. Do you layer in any kind of mindful movement into their training protocols for these guys?
What do you mean by mindful movement?
Well, yeah, exactly. I know that's a loaded question. I meant more stuff along the lines of like meditative, restorative work, not the mindful movement in terms of, because all you said should be mindful movement. We're not just anywhere while we're doing it. So I meant more of the restorative meditation, that sort of centering piece.
Yeah, I guess I could take it two ways. And going just back to, like, when, during the session, we rest and recover in the positions that I'm sitting in right now. So we don't just sit on a chair. We breathe. We take 4 breaths in, 8 breaths out. We allow ourselves to kind of mindfully get into those, mind-body connection, into good positions, so we don't kind of ruin our training. But then also, we start to do a lot of, mental work when it comes to recovery. Not recovery, reaction, and stuff like that. Like, we actually have, I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's called the Oculus. It's so you put on this device on your head, and it gets obviously 100% of your attention because you're in this virtual world. So it's virtual reality training. And so we do these games for the athletes, and there's a leaderboard, scores and everything, and they go through this, and virtually we're building their memory, we're building their cognitive ability to react faster. And all that kind of good stuff that you would do. But that's something that a lot of people don't do when it comes to performance training
Right.
is stuff like that, because we found that's been a game changer for our athletes, especially
Hmm.
before the workout, because we're stimulating their mind before they actually go into the training session, right? So if they're feeling
Yes.
sluggish and slow and maybe stressed that day, every day they go into the workouts and they put on these kind of goggles, and they do 15-20 minute session, and it gets their mind stimulated, and then we see a better performance in the training. It's called the Neural Trainer. That's the software that we use, called
They're
Neural
working.
Trainer.
Man, you're like the Tesla of strength and conditioning. Like the guys are still going analog and getting great results, but you can go digital and get great results as well. And that sounds like you've gone digital in many ways.
Yeah. So my thing is that I'm always trying to stay ahead of the curve, stay ahead of the game. I'm always trying to find things that I wish I had when I was training these kids, and
Sure.
it has to make sense to me, and it has to actually help them. It can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna make them do this cool thing because it looks cool. It has to
Yes.
have some results in it. And the neural trainer has been a game changer because some of the top athletes in the world use this. Guys like Steph Curry, he uses this religiously every single day
Hmm.
before he gets onto the court, shooting, dribbling, all that kind of stuff, and it stimulates his mind. So a lot of great athletes. I did a lot of research before we got it, and we've seen really incredible results from day one. Obviously, the more you do something, you get better at it, but they've seen really good
Absolutely.
results when it comes to coordination, hand-eye coordination, memory. There's a test on there that there's 40 balls, and you have to track 4 balls at a time in all these and look for them, and then I don't know. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly. Yes, Quest Oculus via NeuroTrainer, and where'd you find the software?
Yeah, so it's not actually you won't find the app on the Oculus. You have to
Mhm.
go to the Neuro Trainer on their website, and then you'll get a consultation from them, and then they'll kind of sign you up. I have my own academy on there, so we have athletes on there, so you have to kind of create your own academy or whatever in order to do it. I think it's not something you can just readily find. It took me a long time to find it.
Yes. I want to switch gears here and just talk your areas of passion for a second. When I have my Pilates people on here, I always ask them, "How did you find Pilates?" Right? And for you in your game, I would have to ask you, like, how did you find sport conditioning? How did you decide that this is where you're going to just pour all your energy into making elite athletes?
Because when I was young, I always wanted to find the edge in order for myself to get better. So when I was in high school, I didn't have a trainer like myself or anybody that I could go to. Training wasn't as big as it is today. There was probably there was no functional training studio or anywhere where people were doing sports places. I only had maybe one place was called SST here in
Yeah.
Mississauga, and I went to that when I was my last year of high school. But before then, there was just stuff like Nike Spark, and YouTube was in its infancy, and I would go on YouTube and just type in footwork drills and stuff. And so anyway, I came along with Nike Spark. I bought all their equipment. It came with a DVD. I did their DVD religiously every single day, and I knew that because I remember stuff so easily. I could watch
Hmm.
something without any even voice recording. I can understand what they're doing. So I watched this and I memorized the entire DVD from back to front. And then I would go to my high school, and I would get all my friends, and we would just train together, and I would be the guy training them while I was doing it. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then guys actually started coming from all over and doing it. And we were just doing ladder drills, medicine ball tosses, push-ups, squats,
Yes.
stair runs, such simple stuff. That's funny. Now I go back to that stuff because
I saw that.
that's the stuff that we've been that I was missing. I was trying to go too complex,
Yes.
early in my career to try to figure out new things when the things were always in front of me, and it took me
Hmm.
a little bit to come back to it. But now, literally, we barely use any weights anymore. It's just if I can make my guys more movement efficient first, and then we
Yeah.
start stacking on the weight on there, and then it's history. And my guys are getting faster, more explosive, more dynamic, and we don't even do anything anymore. And people say, "How do you do that?" I'm like, I don't even know. We just go back to the basic stuff.
Right, exactly. So you just started doing that out of your own passion for yourself, and people started to follow you. You realize that this is something that you just love to do. And then, so talk about your years. I mean, you played football, had your stint with the CFL. How, talk through that piece.
Yeah, so obviously in that journey, my goal in life was always to become a professional football player. And I was fortunate enough that my mom, she always, she really pushed me, and she really, gave me a lot of drive and fuel and fire and energy to go out there and do it. And obviously the means to do it, because things could get expensive. So she really pushed me in the right direction. So I was always around the right people, and I always had the right mindset. And that's what I try to instill back in these guys, because especially at a young age, when you're a youth or a high school athlete, if you have a pro mindset before you go to college, you have a way greater chance to succeed. So, she put me with the right mentors. I read a lot of books. I watched a lot of videos, and I always, was inspired in those ways. So the goal was to go to the university and play high level football, which I did. And then the goal was to go to, get drafted and play in the CFL, which, I was fortunate enough to be able to do. And at that point, it was always a dream to open up a facility. And I opened up one in my basement. Had a couple kids come. We did really well. Those kids did, had super successful careers in high school, went off to play university, trained with some teams in the local area. And my name started to get around. And I was fortunate enough to then get a head job at a university football coach. Stayed there for a year. It was a really, really, great experience. But because I was training so many pros at the time too, my name got, dropped, I guess, at professional ranks over here in Toronto. Went in for an interview. They're like, oh man, this guy's great. He has a lot of charisma, passion, enthusiasm. And, we'd love to have him in here with all the stuff that he's doing. So I got an opportunity to work with the Toronto Argonauts. And in that whole time, my business was really starting to flourish online. And I had my first child, and now I have my second, and we're having a third now.
Amazing.
And so thank you. So, so the one thing you're always trying to, build in life, obviously you want to get successful and you want to make more money, but you're trying to get more time back. So with the online programs, it allowed me to get more time back. So now I'm at home 100% because, I left those jobs, say, hey, the online business is doing good, and I can spend, majority of my time with my sons and see them grow up. I didn't, have my father when I was young. I had a stepfather, which was amazing, but I didn't have my real father in my life as much as I would have wanted to. So now, I'm here every day, and I get to run around with my son, go to the park with him every day, go for walks. And that's the one thing that, that really has allowed me to, live my life the way I want to. I don't have to, talk to anybody, or, nobody's in control. So that's kind of what I always wanted. Right. So.
Love that, man. That's what I'm saying. Dad goals.
Goals.
We can build an empire, but at the same time, if they don't know us, it doesn't matter. So that is solid. And so that's awesome. I love that you have the online presence. You have what you're doing there. What are your words of wisdom for those out there who are just starting out in the personal training game, who say one day I want to train elite athletes, or I want to have these type of people on my roster?
Yeah, so when I first started, I wasn't training elite athletes. I was training youth kids, high school athletes, and I was training, weekend warriors, anybody that would just come and train. And it was a great experience. I love it. Obviously now I train majority athletes. But when you first start, you're never bigger than anybody else, right? So I always say each and every training session was my Super Bowl. I want to make sure that person, was going to get the best physically, mentally, emotionally. They were going to get everything that I had. And, the one thing that we've been really, focusing on right now with our athletes, we know a lot of them come for the physical component because, they want to get faster, more explosive. They want to do all that good stuff. But what I've noticed over the years, and even myself, and it wasn't something that I really worked on much at the early stages with athletes or anybody, was just the overall mental. Because I think at the end of the day, you can be the strongest, most physical athlete in the world, but it's all mental.
Yes.
Because sometimes you need to be able to believe. And the reason why I became so successful is that I was always around very successful people that always gave me, the keys to success by always motivating me and being positive and giving me great reassurance. So not that I wasn't doing that before, because I believe in every single athlete, but now we start to focus more on, mantras. And I actually had that up the other day on my Instagram, when Rose Namajunas from the UFC was sitting there, and she was going, I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm the best. Yeah. Because you can either tear yourself down by saying, no, I can't, I'm not good enough, right? And most people do that instead of telling themselves that they're great. I can do this. I will win, all those things. And so now we tell the athletes, if you hit a bad shot, forget about it. I'm great. I'm the best. I'm going to whip it in, whatever it is the next time. So I continuously reinforce that into them to say, hey, you
Yes.
have to say something positive when there's a negative, because you have to train your body, train your mind to consistently be in that positive atmosphere mindset. So when things get tough, that's all you know. That's all your
Yes.
body can revert back to. So when you're like sacrificing and when in the middle of a training session, it's not like, oh, it hurts, it sucks, all this, right? And of course it's going to, but you have to train your body to know that this is a great position to be in. I love this. This
Yes.
is so you
Yes.
have to build that mental fortitude. You got to build like called the Mamba mentality. You always
No
have to
doubt.
be in the right mindset.
It's so funny. I work a lot with youth at risk, back in the day before I got into personal training and stuff. And before COVID, I was playing over at South Common Community Center, and there's a bunch of young guys in there, all these guys playing basketball. So they come out and we're playing foosball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're on the table, and I used to play it back in the day for hours and hours and hours. So I'm just crushing these kids. And then this one kid comes on, and the guys say to him, like, watch out, like, Martin, like, he's really good. And his response was, I'm good too. And the thing that caught me about the way that he said it, it wasn't like, I'm not going to diminish how good you are, but I'm not going to let that intimidate me from how good I am.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like this internal messaging that ties in with what you just said there, where it said, like, it doesn't matter how good he is, I'm good too. And when young people can wrap their head around that and not get intimidated by their surroundings and be confident who they are and have that messaging within themselves that they're good too, that they're elite, that they're strong, that they are all these different things. If we can get them wired that way, there's such a resilience when it comes to everything else that they're going to face in life, right?
Yep. No, and you hit it right on the head. Most athletes are already discouraged before they even go into competition, right? They might, hey, your dad might, not knowing, go in there like, oh, that guy's really, really good, and then you're sitting
Yeah.
there going like, oh shit, he is. Oh man, like, I'm gonna lose this one. Like, I didn't know but he might not even be good, right?
Right.
So like we have to go already in there, just not caring what they're doing, but understanding what we're doing. And
Yes.
it starts with all the things that we do in our everyday life.
Right. And the other piece of that too, so there's some things I'm working on, and someone was asking me, well, are there other people competing for this? Who's your competition? And I was like, it doesn't matter who my competition is. I'm their competition. Let them worry about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we need to get people, like, whatever it is that we're doing, when we get to that place where we can just embrace that mindset that they're hunting us down, like we're not hunting them down, like we're like, those kind of things, those messaging, like you said, are so good, man. I'm just going to read this comment here. Some people just confuse positive reinforcement with egocentric behavior. If it makes you stop trying to better yourself, that's ego. If it pushes you for more, that's confidence. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Man, you got people from all over the place here. Dubai's in the house.
That's the one thing I love about online, right? You're going to touch so many people from so many places around the world.
No doubt. The India question came earlier. What are you doing in terms, like, you're obviously online, you're everywhere, but do you reach out to certain markets or certain groups that you're trying to really target more than others, or?
No, like obviously, like we've niched our market to more athletic-based movements, and anybody can do it. It's not like you have to be this special athlete to do a lot of these drills. It's just more athletic-based stuff, and people like that, right? You want to do fast footwork, you want to do sprints, you want to do change of direction work, you want to do more explosive squatting, push-ups, whatever it is, plyometrics. That's what our training is. It just gives you a different type of outlook on training. So, that's what we try to help people with. Change up their training.
Right, exactly. What about consulting then? Does that turn into consulting with other coaches that have that group, and where now you become the coach to those coaches or master trainers for, like, have you dove into that part of it as well?
We have done some kind of consulting programs in the past. We do it maybe once a year. We dive in, do almost like a mastermind program with coaches, or even athletes we have in there that do one-on-one personal training. And then we but some of those athletes are actually coaches, and they just want to get trained by myself in a specific way so they can learn it, right, and get more access to me personally, where I get on phone calls and Zooms and stuff like that. We break it down and stuff like that. So we do stuff like that.
That stuff's key, because I mean, even within the Plies community, it's one thing to have charisma and to read a lot. It's another thing to have those micro skills to be a good communicator, to be a good teacher, and to have like a good eye, right? Like, I mean, I've seen from the way that you work too, it's one thing to have a skill set. It's another thing to just have intuition and to be curious and to have a good eye for training. So those are the things that I think need to get out there in terms of the next generation of teachers
Yes.
coming up.
And I think, you know, you hit it right on the point. You have to have a good eye. And the one thing I think that has allowed me to separate in the last little bit is that now we do most of our training sessions. We've always filmed everything, and I film every training session. Usually on the second and third set, you know, they teach it, and then I video
got the
it.
movement pattern down, yeah.
And then we break everything down. So because it's a feel, feel kind of thing. They got to feel it, they have to sense it, and they have to see it in order to get better at it. And then when I'm breaking it down to the very minute detail, I'm showing the athlete, and they're like, oh, I didn't really notice or feel that. Okay, I got to get over here. I have to rotate more. So everything I videotape, I have my big screen here, so everything gets pushed back on there. And so we videotape everything, or if it's online, I literally break down every single movement, which has to be done because athletes they won't know unless they see it. A lot of them are great visual learners nowadays, especially with all technology. So just like in sports, right? Like, you know, in every sport, you know, they slow down everything. Was the wide receiver in bounds, right? Did he release it just before, you know, the shot clock expired? So they look at every little thing, and us as coaches, we don't watch enough film in order to see what positioning our athletes are in, what kind of behaviors that they're in. And like all of the head coaches and everybody down the line, they watch film of plays and all that stuff, but the strength coaches, they don't watch film on the movement patterns. They don't watch film on the behaviors, on the little nuances. So when you start to watch film as a strength coach, you'll be like, oh, wow, here's the injury pattern, or here's the safe, secure, durable pattern. And now I have thousands of repetitions I've seen of athletes, and I could tell that athlete, hey, when you collapse in your foot like that, now we're at a more prone injury. I need you to get outside out to the power side of our foot. I need you to create a bigger bow in the leg to be in a more secure position. This is what it should look like. And they see it like, oh, okay, coach, I got it. And then we've seen crazy results doing that. And it's got us a way more successful athletes. And you're teaching them. They're becoming the coach.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going with that too. Because I record people doing their Pilates, and just to get them, it's one thing to demonstrate it, to get them to move and to actually give them tactile cues to get them into the proper space, but then still recording them so they can understand it. And what we're doing as coaches is educating them on their body so that they can give themselves the feedback when we're not there, so they have the proper movement pattern. So the more we can educate them on what's happening in their body and where they need to be in space, the better their repetitions on their own is going to be, instead of them just trying to memorize, okay, what did Shea say last time? Like, they actually know what it feels like in their body.
Yep, no, absolutely. That's exactly what you have to do, and it's not done enough. Obviously, maybe sometimes it's hard because maybe you don't know what to look for. But the more you do it, like I just started looking through thousands and thousands of videos. So I have like 30,000 videos on my phone throughout the year. So I started watching videos of what I used to do in the past, and some of the stuff scared me. I was like, oh wow, like the athlete wasn't in a great position, and I was putting them in a worse position. And they always, complain about, why is my back hurting? Why is my hip hurting? And I'm like, oh, just do this stretch or do this stretch. But when I'm training them with the weights, I'm putting them in a bad position, load it. So when you get over your own ego and all stuff, which I really never had an ego, but so I'm very easily, like, I see something, I'm like, hey, that's wrong. I got to change it. It has to go. Like, I don't care if it looks great or it's cool or, it has to go if it doesn't help the athlete. So we spend a lot of time really focusing on watching film, a lot of film, more film now than literally, anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good stuff, man. Like, we have just trainers, and I saw someone saying the baseball communities right here. Stella's saying, when I work with DBs, we watch a lot of film, not only their movements, but their opponents. And one of the ladies that I work with that I've had on here, she's in California, and she has a lot of guys from different NFL teams, and we start to get deep into the fact that positionally we have to think about how they train too. Like, there's some overarching stuff in terms of their feet, but then she was also saying, well, she has a linebacker, and then she has an outside linebacker, she has an inside linebacker. So you don't need to understand only like what a quarterback needs, but what a linebacker needs, what an inside linebacker needs. Like when you get really specific with the position, then you start to program specifically to the nuances of that position as well. So there's so many layers to this.
No, no, absolutely. Like my biggest thing to make it super easy for people is like, it doesn't matter what sport you play, you have to be an athlete first, right? Like, don't worry about, I'm trying to gain a lot of weight for a specific position. Like, I'm just trying to be fast, durable, explosive, reactive. I got to move well. And when I move well, I can be able to get to the play faster and make the play, right? If people are too worried about, I got to be a certain size, I got to, weight, whatever it is, they lose speed, they lose durability, they lose positioning, whatever it is. Just be an athlete, trust yourself, trust your instincts. And if you want to perform and get better at the sport, you go play the sport more, right? Yes. I'm not going to go in the weight room and do a bunch of push-ups and pull-ups and expect to, make my, 3-point shots better. No, I got to go shoot more threes. I got to go outside and, if I'm a DB, work on breaking out of my back pedal if I want to get more reactive, seeing a football, catching the football. That's how you become a better athlete. Like, the greatest athletes put in more time at the sport. Mm-hmm. So if you want to get better at your sport, go play your sport. You want to be a better linebacker, go do your shuffling drills and transition, explode out of the position. You're going to be better at it. Yes. It's impossible not to.
That reminds me of a story of one of the young guys I used to work with back in the day. When he was like 14, 15, 16, he was playing high-level hockey. And we were training with him, and with that same mindset of just treating him like an athlete, not as a hockey player, but as an athlete. Mm-hmm. And when he went to high school, grade 9, he tried out for the rugby team, did really well, excelled, got invited to try out for Team Ontario, and then got invited to try out for Team Canada. So within 18 months, he went from never playing rugby in his life to being on Team Canada, got a full ride for rugby, and his parents were devastated that he had just given up all those years of hockey and thousands of dollars of hockey because he was an athlete. We weren't making hockey players. We were making athletes, and that athlete was able to change sports and excel because he had such good movement. I'm not taking credit for me as his trainer. This kid was gifted, but we're always cultivating athletes as opposed to just making X players.
No, and I love that you said that, you didn't take credit for his accomplishments or success because he was already a good athlete. Most of the athletes that come see me, I'm like, this athlete, either they're a great athlete or they're really not that great of an athlete, but my job is just to keep them healthy to play sports and be available to play sports. If you're going to make the CFL, you probably make it with or without me. Like you're going to be that good. You're going to go to the NFL. That means that you were the 0.1% specimens in the world that were genetically built to play the sport. You coming to me, I'm not going to build you into being that much faster. My job is to keep you durable enough to play. I don't want, like most athletes, they'll actually lose before they get to that level because the trainers have broken them down, right? The shoes have broken them down. The way that they move in life has broken them down, right? So my job is just to keep them at a specific area and just to maintain it.
Can I add something to that? Because I agree with that, but I never use the word durable. I use the word efficient.
Efficient, yeah.
And that was the way that I always crafted for my athletes to say, I'm trying to make you more efficient. So your movement patterns are efficient, that you're not getting hurt, that you are doing your things that set yourself up for success over time with efficient movement patterns, not faulty movement patterns, all those things. So we're saying the same thing, but it's funny that I just interchanged the word efficient.
No, that's one word we use, efficiency. We call it movement efficiency. That's what we want.
Yep. Yeah. Good stuff, man. That is like, we just burned through an hour, like so fast.
Yeah, just like that.
What, do you want to talk about what you could have coming up next, or is that you're still waiting to do your drop on?
No, you know what? Like, I'm always up to something. There's always something in the works. I got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things I'm always juggling. Obviously, we're always trying to do things in the community. Obviously, here in Canada, it's kind of made it impossible because we never know what's going on with lockdown. And, 1 week we're open, 1 week we're not. We're obviously waiting for our vaccinations for the country to settle down again. Online base, we're trying to, I'm working with a lot of companies right now. Obviously, I got a treadmill here. When things settle down, I'll probably fly down to here and work on some treadmill speed specific stuff with them. I'm
Yep.
working with some people in Toronto now on some more general population online programming for people can go watch me and join a class.
Sure.
And I'm also working on speed programs. So I got so much stuff. I don't know. I don't know. We just kind of release it whenever, and I try to keep my body in tip top shape to be able to do all these things.
Yep. Stay ready, man. Stay ready.
Got to stay ready at all times.
That's right. Shea, thank you so much for your time, man. I'm so glad we got a chance to reconnect. And as always, I'm cheering for you, and I can't wait to actually throw down a workout with you at some point.
I know, man. I'm looking forward to come on in there and get my training session. I know you're always saying, "Hey, man, whenever you're ready to come in," and I'm sitting there going, like, man, like whenever this lockdown, settles
Yeah.
down, I'll be there to come get it in. And I love
Yeah.
doing different types of training and learning, so it'd be great.
Yeah. Guys, for those of you who don't know, we are physically 15 minutes apart.
Yeah, probably 15 minutes apart or so. So, but just obviously in this day and age, we can't really do much.
Can't do much. Yeah, that's all right. We're getting it done though still.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. It's been a good week. I just love the fact that we're just having these conversations and just getting better every day. So, Shea, keep doing it, man.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on.
Right.
And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Take care.